That's my.
So,
Give me 1 second here, I'm gonna change out my glasses from far side to near side. Now I can see this, but now everybody out here looks like. I guess as we age in our beauty and our glory, our eyes change, and I have two of that. I think the doctor called them astigmatisms. Does that sound familiar?
yeah, segmented.
Some of you are shaking your head, so like, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, Chris was funny. Well, welcome, everybody. It's good to be here again. I think everybody knows me, but just in case, I'm Brad, one of the practitioners here. Again, seldom seen, seldom heard these days as the real world takes hold and calls me away frequently on the weekends. If you happen to enjoy the arts, you can always find me at the Performing Arts Center on Saturdays and Sundays. If you enjoy we have playing now Moulin Rouge, I think coming up. I forget already. We have Fiddler on the Roof playing right now. And Michael Jackson is coming, I think, in October. But anyway, if you enjoy the arts, please step by. Today is going to be exciting because, well, let me first say our monthly theme for this month, the month of August, is called the Unstatus Quo. Unstatus Quo. Now, normally I would, do my dictionary thing and look all that up, but then I jumped to the weekly topic title. I'm like, oh, this is our weekly topic title. I'm not making this up. This is straight from our Science of Mind notes. So some of you may not already know this, and some of you may not. But here it is. Dr. Roy, I think you'll appreciate this one. But our weekly topic title, and again, I kid you not, I'm not making this up. Let's talk about sex, baby. So there you go, chilling in the background. Yeah, let's talk about sex. Now, if I were to stick with the notes and follow the outline and the script that they've given us this week verbatim, I would be talking about sex, and specifically the kind of sex that involves two people. It doesn't always have to involve two people, I guess, but ideally two consenting people, hopefully consenting, but as we see in our world, sometimes it is not consenting. But they want me to talk about that sex is one of those sometimes taboo topics that we seem to shy away from, that we seem to be shy to talk about, and that we shouldn't bring it out in the open because it's one of those very natural things that we're not supposed to talk about, but that we should be able to talk about. So which one is it? And then they want me to also talk about this idea of sex as a spiritual tool. I thought, oh, that's interesting. We have other spiritual tools, meditation, journaling, things of that nature. And sex being one of those then should be brought more out into the open. And they mentioned in the notes that, this is true about sex being brought out into the open, regardless of the kind of sex it is, whether it's heterosex or homosex or somewhere in between all of that. And so as I sat down to prepare my notes, I thought, well, here I am, a male, still in my sexual prime. What better topic to talk about and explore and have fun? But alas, Spirit had a different idea. Spirit started to guide me down slightly different path and wanted me to offer up a slightly different interpretation today about this idea of sex. And so, yes, I'm still going to talk about sex, but not the kind that you might think of, not the kind that necessarily happens behind closed doors. While that is still a vital topic, I want to save that for another day and time. So today I'm going to talk about a different kind of sex, and one that I think if everyone understood and practiced, yes, I said practice, this particular kind of sex, then I think as a humanity, as a CSL community, it would bring us what I like to call one step closer to our grand vision. And that grand vision is a world that works for everyone. And so again, yes, sex spelled S-E-X. So if I were to write it out, it'd be like S with a little period, E with a little period, followed by X with a little period. So what I'm getting at is sex as an acronym, and sex stands for, are you ready? The systematic energy exchange. Yes, sex meaning energy exchange that we have between two people. Now, how's that for a new meaning of sex? I get some fun, right? Okay. And so the reason I think Spirit started to guide me down this path, and I'll say this: I'm about to turn 52, and I know a lot of us have had birthdays in the past. Well, this year, I guess I should say, and we'll have a birthday. But in my short 51 years and 10 months, something like that, on this planet, in my short time at CSL, I'm in my 5th year now, going on 6 years. There's one thing that I've come to understand, and that is this: sex matters. Sex matters. And what I'm talking about specifically, again, is the energy that you exchange with another human being, the energy that you exchange in your community, the energy that you exchange anytime, any situation that you have going on. And so what I've come to learn that really matters is the energy that you are exchanging, the energy that you are being, that you bring to any situation. The energy that you are being, the energy that you are exchanging, whether it's in a relationship, okay, that relationship could be a romantic relationship, it could be a family member relationship, it could be a simple platonic relationship, a coworker relationship, or even a friendship relationship. But what matters, are you ready for this, is the sex you're having with that person. How's that? Is that crazy or what? Who would have ever thought someone like me would be up here saying, yeah, let's have sex. Let's have sex. Let's have a lot of sex. And yes, it does matter. So I'm going to ask all of you, are you having sex? Because if you're not, you should. The energy that you are exchanging with another person, place, or thing in this world. And so yes, you get permission, you get approval. It's okay to have sex. I see you smiling there, Gail. Engage in sex, lots of sex. And here's the catch to all of this: make sure it's good. Make sure it's good sex. Now, when you are out in the world, exchanging, having sex in your community with anyone that you come across, here's the neat part of this. Here's the kicker. Okay. Unlike bedroom sex, where there is a slight dependency on the ability or skill of your partner of whether or not you enjoy it, with sex systematic exchange of energy, there is no dependency on the skill of your partner. There is no dependency on what the other person is doing. There is no dependency on what the other person is saying. If I were talking about bedroom sex, then yes, what I would be. I would be talking about communication and openness and guiding each other. But here, when we exchange, when we have sex in the outside world, I'll say, we don't have to worry about it. The only thing we have to worry about is us. And guess who gets to control us? Us. Okay. It only depends on you, and you alone get to decide and choose what energy, what sex you choose to exchange anytime, any place, any situation. Now, the only thing that I would ask is whether or not you're exchanging the energy that you wish to exchange, that you desire to exchange. If the answer is yes, then proceed on. Have at it. Have more sex. A lot of sex. Have good sex. But if your answer to that question is no, if you're having sex that doesn't work for you, that's not working for you, then what an opportunity. What are we all about here at Science of Mind? What are we all about at CSL? We're all about the mirror work, the self-reflection, the inner work. If you're having sex and not enjoying it in the outer world, then what an opportunity for self-reflection, for self-evaluation, so that the next time you are engaging in sex, and there will be a next time, that you can bring forth an energy that you wish to exchange in that situation, that you desire to exchange. And then you can say, yes, 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 yes. Okay. The kind of orgasm that works in the community, the kind of orgasm that works to make this world a better place for you and for me. This is the type of energy to exchange right now. And if you say, well, such and such brought this energy into the situation and caused me to react and bring forth an energy that wasn't my highest desire or wish, then you're missing the point. The energy they bring should not impact and impart the energy that we bring, because we are in control. We are in charge of our own energy. Okay? When in that situation, when you say, well, they did this or they did that, or they said this or they didn't say this, guess what? You're holding the other person responsible for how you're acting and for how you're having sex and for the energy that you're exchanging and for the sex that you're bringing forth. And we know differently here. Okay, we know differently. We're all smart enough to know that that's not the case, that isn't true. We're smart enough here to understand, we've all studied enough, we all understand enough that we can't necessarily control what that other person, what that other situation is. We can't control the traffic. We can't control the lights. We can't control somebody being late, okay? But we can control the energy. We can control the sex that we bring to this situation, no matter what it is. So you see, isn't this the best kind of sex? Because it's not dependent on another person. Now, I'm definitely not an expert in bedroom sex, and I know someone here that is, but sometimes, and I don't even know this, but sometimes that bedroom sex does depend on the other person. Their skill, their communication, or in some cases, lack thereof. And now here is also where the rubber meets the road. There's always a rubber that meets the road, right? And I've said this a lot here in many of my talks throughout the year, but I think it's worth repeating over and over again. I always say this: it's easy to have sex and exchange an energy when life is going well. When you won the lottery, when you're at a wedding, when your granddaughter is getting married, or just had, or your daughter or son just had a grandchild, something like that. Something that gives us what? That dopamine rush, that serotonin rush. Sure, it's easy to be good. It's easy to have great sex then, right? Because the stars are lining up. But what if it's not? I always say this: what if it's not? Okay. What if you perceive that life is working against you right now? But is that really true? That's another question. But what if we perceive that life is not working in our favor, such as divorce, a job loss, a job firing, an unexpected financial burden, bullying, trauma, poverty? I could go on and on. Can you still have good sex in that situation? The answer, of course, you already know, is yes. Of course you can. But will it? I love this quote. I had to write this one from Ernest Holmes. He said this: through a conscious acceptance of the fullness of the presence of God, there flows in and through us a joy, a love, and a wholeness that touches every part of our being. Now imagine having that kind of sex every day. Woo! Joyful, loving, peaceful. Wouldn't that be? Who would want that kind of sex? I know. That would be some good sex. A wholeness that touches every part of our being. And so I will continue to say in this talk today, by all means, yes, engage in sex. Lots of it, have sex. But remember, for what I'm talking about today, the systematic energy exchange. And so you all have my permission to go out and be a sex god or sex goddess. Go for it. Science of mind reminds us time and time again that we are spiritual beings. having a human experience. And thus, it is time to return, are you ready for this? To the original purpose of sex. This is from our Science of Mind notes. To return to the original origins and purpose of sex, to return to wholeness and understand that everything happening in our universe around us is simply an exchange of energy. Exchanging the energy of spirit, the energy of who we are. Are you ready for this? We say everything is God. Well, guess what? Everything is sex. That's pretty awesome, huh? You like that, Gail? You're still smiling. Maybe you're frozen. So we can literally have sex every day of every waking moment. How cool is that? I mean, literally think about that. We can have sex anytime, any place, anywhere. And Science of Mind also reminds us this week that at one point or another, we are all receptors of this energy exchange. And the energy exchange can come in a wide variety of forms: trauma, inspiration, abuse, joy, addiction, gratitude, poverty, abundance, food insecurity, food plentifulness. And dare I say this one, energy exchange can also occur in the form of, I'm going to duck when I say this, politics. It's a tough one, but it's true. You can certainly exchange energy in the form of politics. Science of Mind teaches us also that we all deserve to have a grand rising. And so in order for there to be this, there must be a willing to embrace and exchange energy with the wholeness of all that humanity is, the poverty, the gratitude, the wisdom, the addiction, the abundance, all of it, a willingness to have sex with all that is, with all that exists. Because as we see, God, sex is everything. The up, the down, the left, the right. Ernest Holmes also told us, I love this quote too, we are so intimately connected with the universal creative God power that it is impossible to get away from it. It literally is. It's impossible to get away from it. The universal power, where it goes, where we go, it goes. We are one and the same. Hence, we never have to wonder whether or not we are in touch with it. It is where we are and we are in it. It is in us, it is around us and flowing through us. And so are we aware of the energy we are bringing and exchanging into the wholeness of humanity? Are you aware of the energy that you are bringing? And here's why it matters. I love to tell this story. About 15 years ago, I was part of a statewide recycling program in my home state of Oregon. And one day we were in one of those big fancy government rooms, sitting at one of those really long tables. I don't know, 15 or 20 of us were sitting around the table, representing all different entities and walks of life having to do with all things environment, whether it was water, air, soil, solid waste, we say trash, recycling. Anyway, discussing the ins and outs of recycling. One of my colleagues was there, and I had known him for, I don't know, 4, 5, 6, 7 years at this point, but I hadn't seen him for a while. And at the end of the meeting, even before the end, I had really noticed there had been a change about him. And at the end of the meeting, he stood up, and then I could really see it. And I went over to him and I said, Pat, I'll say his name, Pat. I'm like, wow, you look great. Oh my gosh, what have you lost? 50, 60 pounds? And he goes, yeah, I've lost 75 pounds. And he said, I've got 20 more pounds to go. I'm like, that's incredible. And so I asked him the question, well, what inspired you to do this? What inspired you to go on this weight loss journey? And what he said next floored me, and I'll never forget this. He said, Brad, you did. And I went, what? He said, yeah, you did. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I've been watching you on Facebook, on social media. Now, bear in mind, this is 10, 12, 15 years ago. He said, Brad, I've been seeing you and your posts and your journey and how you started racing and doing 5K races and 10K races. And it inspired me. And I went, oh my gosh. And here's why having sex is important. Here's why exchanging energy is important. Because you have absolutely no idea that the energy that you are exchanging in the world somewhere, some way, somehow is influencing and inspiring another person. I had no clue that day that what I was doing in my life, the energy that I happened to be putting into the world at that point, that stage of my journey, was influencing and inspiring another person. I had no clue. You talk about clueless, that was me that day. And when I asked him, what inspired you? He said, Brad, you did it. I was forward. And I still remember that story to this day. So the energy that you bring, the energy that you bring forth into the world, it does matter. The sex that you have, it does matter. Because you never know when. You never know where. You never know how. The energy that you're bringing is inspiring another person. And so as I wrap this up, I just wanted to emphasize again that we all have an opportunity to have sex, to recognize this conscious exchange of energy wherever we go. And the way that we do that is in the energy of who we are being. And we can be any energy that we want. We can exchange energy that we want. And remember this final point, again, this is from Science of Mind. The universe and all that is happening is one giant mirror and will always reflect back to you the energy that you are bringing, the energy that you are exchanging. So choose, and as someone once said, choose wisely the energy that you are exchanging. Don't think, oh, my energy doesn't matter. Don't think the energy that I bring won't have an impact on someone. A very quick short story too. February of 2013, I was sitting on my couch in the midst of a pretty traumatic, tough divorce. And as I was sitting there, I had just come home from work, a long day. Again, I was still with government. I didn't ever work for government. I was not recommended. There's a lot of tough energy exchange there. But it was a rough day, and I was at one of my low points, and I was sitting on my couch, and it was just me at the time. My girls had moved out, and I got home, and life was at a low. And I sat on the couch, I put my head down, and I was just ready to just lose it all. And I looked up, and there was my dog, my Cocker Spaniel. Some of you might remember my Cocker Spaniel. I told a couple stories about him. Now, if anyone in life is your best friend, it's who? It's your dog. It's your dog. It's your fur animal. And I think I had had him about 6 years at this point. He was about 6 years old. Never once, when I called him, had he not come over. And so I sat there on my couch. I looked up. I stared at him. He was probably about the same distance from you to me, Dal. And I just went, come here, boy, come here, boy, come here, Loki. And they looked like I was like, come here, boy, because I really needed a hug. I just needed someone to embrace. And guess what he did? This is the first and only time he ever did this. He turned away. He turned away. And he went back to his bed and he laid down and he looked at me and I still remember the look on his face. He looked up, his ears were perked. He was like, dude, no, not today. And I could look at that and say that was the worst day, but that was also the best day of my life, because in that moment, I cannot explain what happened next. But as I sat there on the couch, I like to say the roof on my house opened up, the universe reached in and smacked me on the head, and the universe said this to me: what you focus on will come. And in that moment, I realized that the energy that I had been bringing into my marriage, into my relationship, was toxic. And I realized at that moment too, where that toxic energy had come from. And I won't go into too much further detail, but I realized in that moment that what we focus on, we become, and that what we exchange, that energy-wise, matters. And so I asked myself a very important question at that moment. Well, the energy I've been bringing is not working for me, clearly. And it did lead to ultimately getting divorced. But I asked myself this question: what energy can I bring to the world that will work? And that set me on a very spiritual journey, spiritual path that here I am. I think about that's about 2011, so about 13 years later. That in part led to my book that I just wrote recently too, that has been. So again, you can be and exchange any energy that you desire. And I think the greatest growth of humanity, starting with each one of us, comes when we learn to appreciate and understand this idea of sex. That sex is the systematic energy exchange, and that we recognize, appreciate, respect, and understand the energy that others are bringing to the equation, even if it's an energy we don't like, we don't appreciate, and that we don't resonate with. But I think this understanding of others' energy is a small step that each one of us can play in the larger picture of creating a world that, again, works for everyone. So I'll finish up with this quote from Ernest Holmes again. Science of mind proclaims the spiritual nature of humankind. It removes fear by introducing love. It places us in the mind of God as some parts of the greater whole. And so go forth and be love, remove the fear, exchange the energy of your choice, of your desire. Go forth, good luck, Godspeed, God bless. So it is. Thank you.